Hello, my friends. Now, there are some things in Star Wars with lightsaber combat I don't get. Now, before we get into the new lightsaber and everything, there's this one move Anakin did I don't get, and I don't see it being useful in regular combat. Now, I'm using a boken for this. It's the closest thing I have to a lightsaber. There's no guard. It's a training weapon for the samurai. Lightsaber combat was based off samurai combat. And what he did was he brought it up like this. Now bringing it up like this, you can see my arms protect my head, but my whole torso and legs are open. Now I can reach down and block, but my ankles are still open. I can block this way, I can block that way, but I gotta twist my whole body, and it's quite uncomfortable. And I'm still leaving my ankles open. And a trained Jedi would know that, especially someone who trained with Yoda or Obi-Wan, would know, don't leave your ankles open. So that wouldn't be used in fantasy weapons, is a strike like this, and it'd be a strike more like this, or like this. Now they would use a strike like this because you can do all sorts of fancy things with it. So this I don't get. Now the thing is with this though, with a Jedi he could jump up and flip over them and strike. Being a Jedi, of course. Now I don't know how good that would work against Dooku, because Dooku was who he was fighting when he did this. Dooku is a master swordsman. So I think Dooku would just hit him in the air and knock him down. So I'm going to put down Boken. That's one thing I don't get. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to bring up this sword. Now, a lot of people have trouble with the hilt on the new lightsaber. Now this hilt is rather large. This guard is rather large. They have trouble with the guard. And the guard is rather large on this sword. Because it's a two-handed sword. And it's a European sword. Now all the other lightsabers were based off Japanese swords, the samurai swords. And this is European, so it has the guard. I don't have a problem with the guard. The guard is fine by me. It works for me. It's not my biggest problem. My bigger problem with the trailer is the square speeder. We never see a speeder in Star Wars that is that square, that, you know, that ancient looking. So that's more my problem than the guard on the lightsaber. Now the other thing I don't get, if we're having European weapons, then maybe we'll have a European fighting style. Now as we said, this is based off samurai combat, so they come down with one hand, quick strikes, blah 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 blah. But Europeans, they use a one-handed sword, but they also use a shield. And as you can see, you strap the shield on your arm. And you got a sword and a shield. Now this shield isn't as long as the shield, as a normal shield. It doesn't cover my feet, it just covers my body. But I can stab through, I can cover. Now I know what you're saying. Why would they use shields? Why not? That's the thing I never got about lightsaber combat, is why Jedi, I get why Jedi don't use shields. I get why George Lucas didn't put shields in. And that's because they're based off samurai, and samurai didn't use shields in the old samurai movies. And I get why Jedi don't use shields. Jedi are supposed to be peacekeepers. So they wouldn't walk around with a big ass shield, because they're peacekeepers. They can deflect, and they're not supposed to fight large crowds. The thing I don't get is why in battle, why in the Clone Wars didn't they use a shield? Think about it. You can use a lightsaber one-handed. We saw that a lot. So in the Clone Wars, you're fighting a huge group of droids. You put your shield up. This can take on blaster bolts. You can go on fighting. I didn't get that. Now I know what you're saying, well maybe they don't have shields. We saw that they have shields that can at least deflect blaster bolts with the Gungans. In episode 1, in the battle with the Gungans at the end, which I'm not putting a clip of, even a picture. So look up the Gungan battle, because I don't want Disney on my ass. We saw the Gungans had shields. They weren't like this, they were a little bit thinner. They were about 3/4 as wide as this, but they went down a little bit further. And these were laser shields, and they deflected blaster bolts back at the robot soldiers. So we know they have shields that can at least deflect blaster bolts. Do they have shields that can deflect lightsabers? Well, according to the expanded universe, there are metals that can not only absorb lightsabers, but can turn off lightsabers when they hit them. Now the expanded universe is no longer canon, so that may not work. But if a Gungan shield can deflect blaster bolts, it might be able to deflect a lightsaber with a little bit of tweaking, which Anakin would easily be able to do because of how good he is at building. So therefore, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to have a shield for combat, for lightsaber combat, other than it doesn't look as cool. And that's something I don't get. I mean, even the Sith, by now, should have been able to create a shield and fight one-handed. And think about it. You're going in with a shield, you can do this. You don't have to worry about parrying. You can block with the shield and stab under, and stab over, and stab around. You can use the shield as a weapon to knock them away. I don't get why the Sith haven't built a lightsaber shield. It's just something I don't understand. I'm sure it's possible, especially when we see Gungan technology that can deflect blaster bolts. And it would give them an advantage against the Jedi because they have a shield, the Jedi just have a sword. So the Jedi's are boom, 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 raining down on shield. Well, they're blocking with the shield and stabbing or slicing with the sword. It's a European style combat. What we're seeing a European style sword. So why not European style combat? It's not as cool looking. You may not see the fun little flips. But once again, this would give you an advantage over just someone with this. So that's what I don't get. We see it's possible with the Gungan shields. So that's why I don't understand why Jedis in the Clone Wars didn't carry a shield. I don't see why Sith didn't design a shield for Jedis. These are things I don't understand why they're not around yet. And because of that, I mean, I understand why they're not in the movies. It's because George Lucas wanted samurai style fighting. But I don't understand, once we've seen the shields, why they're not being implemented. I also don't understand, to put the sword down, why if we have shields that can deflect blaster bolts, I don't have a gun, so let's pick the sword up and pretend the sword's a gun. So it's now a gun. Okay? We got a shield that can deflect blaster bolts. We have a gun. You can use this gun one-handed. Clone troopers can have a one-handed gun and a shield. A lot more are going to survive against the droid army, especially from a Supreme Chancellor who is from Naboo and can easily get his hands on this shield technology. So he can deflect, the shield can deflect for the clone troopers, and once again, it's only about 3/4 as wide, but it's longer. It goes down to about my ankles, their shields would, and they could go in like this, only instead of a spear with a pistol, and just start taking these droids out and blocking with the shield. These are things I don't understand about Star Wars combat. I guess I never will, other than the fact it looks cooler this way. The reason we don't use shields in our army, we don't have a shield that can deflect bullets. They have a shield that can deflect lasers, and I don't know why they don't use them. I don't get it. But that's all I got to say about this. Now, there's one thing I decided to add. During the Clone Wars, the only way to beat a Jedi was to overwhelm them. Surround them with enemies where they can't block. Because you can't block behind and forward and da-da-da-da. Now a shield takes care of that. Because with a shield, you can bring it into your body, you can squat down like this, and then you can block this side, this side, this side. Apparently break things until you kill those, and then you can turn around and kill those. So half the Jedi deaths no longer happen because Jedis use shields. That's all I wanted to add.